Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Watch Darius TV, and I am back with another review. This one is going to be on The Boys, Season 3, Episode 4, Glorious 5-Year Plan. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, share it, do all this stuff. So let's start. This episode, another crazy one. This season is just getting better and better and better. It's so much going on, so many twists and turns. The episode starts with MM. He seems to have anger towards obviously Soldier Boy for killing his family, and he's watching a video on Soldier Boy, and he's taking Lexapro for his anger. So clearly, his anger is coming from his hatred for Soldier Boy. Huey finds out that Butcher is on Compound V, and he killed Gunpowder. He doesn't want the team to find out about him taking this Compound V. So that's how that is. We see how that turns out at the end of this episode. Homelander has an interview on TV where he basically, I feel like he's making a reference to the boys and how they're plotting against them and stuff like that. So, or maybe he could have been talking to Edgar, possibly. He could have been referencing to Edgar having power over him behind the scenes, pulling strings and stuff like that. Either way, it could have been either one of those two, I believe. And Edgar has a talk with Victoria about controlling Homelander. She doesn't agree with trying to control him. Edgar says that Homelander's afraid of him. And then he reassures Victoria, basically, to let her know that, everything's going to be all good and stuff like that. Clearly, that was a foreshadow of things twisting and turning at the end of this episode. Also, I love the writing on this season. It's so whatever you think is gonna happen, completely goes the opposite. Anybody who's read the comic books like me, we may think we know what's gonna happen, but they completely throw a curveball in, like with what they did with Black Noir. Just they keep thinking of new stuff all the time. I love the writing this season. Very good writing this season. Homelander, Butcher ends up having to cover for Cherie's debt for little Nina, who wants her. Little Nina really wants Sherry to settle her debt to her, so instead, Butcher ends up having to work for her. The team ends up having to work for her to kill this Russian mobster, I believe. Homelander walks in on Starlight and Huey talking, which is a very tense scene. Homelander ends up testing Huey, basically talking, sexual about Starlight and stuff like that. The scene was so tense. If it was anybody else, Homelander would have possibly killed them. But, Huey's protected by plot armor, so that's not going to happen. A Train wants to confront a racist soup, which is Blue Hawk. And during the talk, Ashley ends up talking to him about she during Ashley talks with A Train, and she claims to care about Black Lives Matter, and she even says that she has a bunch of black squares on her social media, kind of like back in 2020 when George Floyd was unfortunately murdered, and everybody was putting those black squares or whatever like that on their timeline to show that they cared. I don't know what the point of that was. I like how they made a reference to how people were doing that to show that they were in solidarity for Black Lives Matter by putting a black square on their social media Instagram pages. So that was basically her making a reference to that. I liked the way they made a reference to how people were doing that, basically. Putting a black square or a blackouting their Blackout Tuesday. Like that was really I don't so I love how the boys basically is sort of mocking modern day protests, by people doing that. I just personally didn't see the point of doing that, and I like that Ashley represents that. And it's funny how it also shows how fake Ashley is. She went from hating his new suit to now talking about she loves it and it's great. She doesn't really care about A Train's issues. She's just basically trying to make sure she does her job and basically trying her best to not end up getting killed by Homelander. Basically, um, A Train has this really awful pop commercial. It's basically a parody of Kylie Jenner's Pepsi commercial. That's all it is. And he's forced to do this. He supposedly was talked to his brother to do more for the black community, and instead he gets forced into doing some crappy commercial to show that he cares about, you know, issues in the community. Really, he don't. He's just forced to be a puppet again. Basically, his brother's probably sick to his stomach when he sees that commercial. Queen Maeve finally returns. We finally see Queen Maeve again, and she is practicing with her sword. She is starting to exhibit traits of her comic book counterpart. She's drinking and engaging in group sex and stuff like that, as she made a reference when she was talking to Starlight. And she's preparing to go up against Homelander by practicing with her sword, which anybody read in comic books, we know how that ends. So I don't know what makes her think that that sword will really do anything to Homelander. I don't know what was she thinking with that. That's just a recipe for disaster. He can take that sword and probably use it on her most likely. But Queen Wave knows about the weapon that's going to be used to try to kill Homelander. You know, she tells Starlight about that, which is basically Soldier Boy. And we're going to see how that's going to turn out and see how this supposedly weapon, is going to work against Homelander. Queen Maeve really wants to stop Homelander. You know, she really does, but she doesn't really seem like she knows what she's doing. But they probably most likely won't be as lucky as they were when they were roughing up Stormfront. So yeah, Queen Maeve, she's just worn out, and like I said, she's starting to seem a lot like her comic book counterpart now. The boys end up heading to Russia, and Kimiko has to do a hit job for Nina. And if she doesn't do it, then Cherie's dead, basically. So they have to head over there and handle that. You know. Kimiko ends up basically telling Butcher through text message she is not his gun. Butcher asserts his dominance over Frenchie and Kimiko, and the two are the muscle of the boys. Kimiko has her sharp nail powers and stuff like that, and Frenchie basically is a marksman, I believe, or not. He's a what do you call it? I know he has guns and stuff like that. I forgot the name of it. He's a arms dealer. So yeah, like I said, they're the muscle of the team. So yeah, basically he sorts his dominance over them. Butcher also he's starting to show a more of a darker side to his team. He's to the comic book characters. You already know what ends up happening to Butcher later on in the series, what he ends up sort of becoming. And he's sort of like almost like a mirror to Homelander. He's sort of bossing and controlling his teammates around, kind of like Homelander. So it's almost like he's like a mirror image of him in a way. They're both sort of the same, like two sides of the same coin, basically, for their teams. Except obviously Homelander is more willing to kill his team, and Butcher doesn't seem like he's willing to kill anybody on his team. Unless if you read the comic books, then maybe you probably already know what might happen with him. But knowing this TV show, they're gonna change stuff around anyway. Starlight tells Supersonic they may need to fight Homelander, and of course he stupidly decides to join. I already kind of had a feeling he sort of basically ends up getting killed in this episode. I kind of had a feeling that was going to happen. I did like the scene. I thought it was kind of funny when he says that his grandmother wouldn't let him date the whitest girl ever. I thought that was kind of funny what he said to Starlight, though. That was pretty cool line. Homelander makes the team tacos for Supersonic, which basically Homelander. Either he's completely tone deaf, or he's might be possibly racist. I'm not sure what's going on with Homelander. Most likely, I believe he's starting to just dabble into racism, basically, because of he was already in love with a Nazi, so most likely he's exhibiting racist tendencies and stuff like that, or just completely tone deaf. Black Nora's finally back out of his coma, so that's good. I wonder what feeling he's going to have towards Queen Maeve for putting him in one. But, I don't know. I guess he seems to be quiet and keeping to himself again. A-Train talks about Blue Hawk, basically wanting to handle that and tries to convince Homelander to deal with him. Basically, the Deep ends up completely sidelining that, and, Homelander's like, yeah, you're probably right. I'll just let him go. And this Blue Hawk superhero is basically sort of like a racist cop. He's just attacking a lot of black communities and stuff like that, unarmed black people. And A-Train wanted to deal with it, but Deep sort of completely sidelined that. So, in order to kiss up to Homelander. So, that's how that is. I kind of feel bad for A-Train, but, it's hard to tell what's up with this guy if he cares about anybody. Most likely he doesn't, as you can see at the end of this episode. Homelander also almost kills Ashley when they were talking, basically, and I forgot what their conversation was about, but basically Ashley, she ends up trying to sort of be like Homelander when she talks to that one guy, taking his lines and stuff like that, his threats and insults and stuff like that. Ashley is just a worm trying to fit in. She's a complete weirdo character, but she's trying her best to stay alive and not get herself killed, but her character is such a weirdo. A-Train confronts the Deep, and they end up getting into a scuffle. They have a rivalry, and Homelander comes and he helps the Deep, and basically walks off. Now the Deep is officially Homelander's sidekick now. It seemed like maybe back in season one, it seemed like mostly maybe A Train was probably his sidekick, possibly. Now it's the Deep, and he completely just sidelines him and talks about, oh, your legs are just useless. I got a feeling that maybe A Train probably might get a heart transplant and he might start having his powers again. I got a real feeling he might do that. Because if this is heart giving him issues, then shoot, I'm surprised he didn't just take the heart from the guy that was his rival in season two. Just take his heart out, and his head already exploded. But I don't know. That's my opinion. That's what he probably could have did. Adrian can feel himself losing himself basically this season. He just completely can't even run, so he's just completely useless. And Supersonic ends up trying to convince him to get on this team, and it seemed like it's going to possibly work. But we know the A-Train's off for himself. MM confronts Butcher about his bad side, about how basically he's been treating Ryan and Kimiko. And Butcher talks about him and their history with MM, how they were on a platoon together, and he also talks about MM's importance to the team, how he's like basically second in command. I like that they got a history going on there. I really like that scene, that dialogue they had. Kimiko dresses up for a party, and they have Poison playing in the background, I think by Belle Biv DeVoe. I hope I pronounced that right. I never said their name correctly, but I like that scene that they had. She's walking and stuff like that. She breaks a heel. I thought that scene was pretty cool. The room of the then basically once you get into this party with this big Russian mobster guy, there's a room full of sex toys, and they're all themed by the seven. So they all have there's an A Train sex toy, Starlight sex toy. They all have different types of you know themed sex toys, which is just abnormal. Kimiko ends up finally killing the Russian mobster and his shooters. And finally, we see her in action. She's finally back. All the characters are finally beginning to come back now after a few episodes into this season. And she gets back into, being herself. In the comic books, she was basically straight up violent and didn't talk. She was kind of like a bit of a one-dimensional character. But on this show, they want to make her more dimensional, more three-dimensional. She doesn't like violence and stuff like that. We haven't really seen her use her nails, though. I find that weird. Most of these characters in this season have not been using their powers as much. I wonder, is the budget on this show kind of getting trimmed down? Because I don't see I don't see Homelander using his beams, but now Butcher's using the laser beams now. A Train, he hasn't really used any of his powers at all. Like, most of the characters are not really using any of their powers this season. I don't know, is the budget trimming down on the show? If anybody understands, leave a comment for that. I'm like, it's weird. Not too many characters are really using their powers like they used to this season. I find it weird that also Queen Maeve was gone for a while too. That was kind of odd. One of the girls ends up putting a straight up bullet in Kimiko's head. Of course, she survives, and she completely scares those girls, and she doesn't want to kill them. I think that she probably would have definitely killed them, maybe in season one or something like that. But Kimiko is really trying her best to not show her violent side, even though it's really kind of what she is. But Victoria has a press conference for Homelander, and she ends up instead backstabbing Edgar. Now Edgar has no power, and she claims that she is just tired of helping Edgar, and she wants to help her daughter out. So she completely turns her back on Edgar, and now Homelander ends up having more power. Now, that sucks. Who would have thought that would have happened? Now Edgar is gone, and she then gave her power back to Homelander. It's Ashley, like I said, Ashley is weirdo. Kimiko isn't happy with violence. After the mission's over, she tells Frenchie that Butcher is no better than Nina, basically. They're basically working for somebody that is violent and crazy, a dangerous person. Kimiko convinces Frenchie that they should leave. We all know that they aren't going nowhere, obviously, so somehow they're going to end up being forced to stay later on this season because they're a team. They can't leave the boys, they're not done yet. Homelander confronts Victoria. He tells her that she was Edgar's weapon. He's happy she chose her own kind. I wondered, did that mean? Well, I guess clearly he meant people that have powers like them. At first, I thought it was something racial, but I believe Victoria is exactly white. I believe she might be the actress or the character might be Hispanic, obviously. But at first, I thought that he meant racially, but he meant by people that have powers, supes. Huey says he wants to try the powers, basically. Similar to basically how it was. Anybody read the comic books? In the comic books, he didn't want to use the powers. It was actually forced on him. Butcher ends up sneaking in, getting him to use the Compound V. But this time around on a TV show, he wants to use it so he can, I guess, stand up. He doesn't like feeling weak, and he felt weak against Homelander. So he wants to use it. Butcher's like, nope, he's completely against it. That's the opposite of what happened in the comic books. Anybody ever read the comic books, they know what happened. And then let's see. Homelander confronts Edgar. Edgar tells Homelander that he taught Victoria to play all sides. So he's not particularly surprised that she betrayed him, but he trained her very well. Edgar ends up verbally cutting down Homelander. Tells him that he's basically nothing but bad product. I thought he was gonna kill Edgar on his way out, but Edgar takes his suspension in stride. He takes his little temporary suspension and lets Homelander take his little win, but he completely cuts Homelander down. That was just brutal, but Homelander got what he deserved. Nobody else can talk to Homelander like that. So yeah, Victoria gives her daughter some Compound V. I forgot why she did that. I don't know if her daughter had some type of. I guess she wanted her daughter to have powers like just to be sort of a soup like her. I'm not sure why. Maybe I must have missed something there. But she ended up giving her daughter powers also. And then the boys end up bringing to a facility to get this weapon, which is basically Soldier Boy, the weapon to stop Homelander. It's going to supposedly stop him. They see they see a hamster that has Compound V, so Compound V can also be put into animals also, not just humans. That's interesting. The guards come shooting. Butcher shows that he has powers and he ends up killing off the guards. We find out Huey also took the drug too, and he punches through a guard like he did when he punched one of the superheroes through the chest in the comic books. So I like that reference they put in there. The team is definitely not happy about them taking their powers, especially not happy with Huey taking them. But he decided he wanted to do it. So yeah, so Huey temporarily has powers now. They find the weapon, and of course it's Soldier Boy. He has powers, and his powers seems that he has some type of energy that has the type of power that can sort of neutralize the other powers of another soup. So that's interesting. He ends up blasting Kimiko, and she ends up losing her power to heal, which is kind of funny because it's a callback to earlier in the episode when she got shot and looked like she was dead, but she survived the gun wound, but she wasn't able to survive the hit from Soldier Boy. So basically, it ends with MM. He's mad at Butcher over this whole thing. Huey is basically sort of in a daze with his new powers and stuff like that. And Kimiko is pretty much dying. So that's how the episode ends for the boys. Homelander takes Starlight for a flight. And basically, Homelander ends up showing her that he killed Supersonic. He finds out that, they're plotting against him, and he ends up killing her. Let's see. I'm not too surprised but A Train working with him. I'm not really too surprised that A Train would betray them. He's trying so hard to be in Homelander's team, but he ends up showing that he's a complete bootlicker. So he shows that he will do anything to stay in Homelander's good graces. Total bootlicker. But he knows he's losing his powers and he's losing his fame, so he has to do what he has to do to keep it. It's a sick move, but that's what he does. Homelander says that he tells Starlight that he will kill Huey if she does any more plotting, and then he basically just leaves her on a roof. Wow, I did not think that Supersonic would end up getting killed off so early. That was pretty brutal, but yeah, it was a really good episode. This was. I'm happy to see a lot of characters back. Queen Maeve, Black Noir, they're all back. I believe that obviously now Frenchie and MM are probably going to end up taking a Compound V eventually so they can fight up against a couple of the soups, maybe the boys or whatever like that. But this episode was really good. It was crazy. I'm not even sure what might happen in the next episode. I honestly don't even know. But it was a really good one. Crazy episode. Crazy one. If you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video. Cannot wait till episode 5. This season's been getting better and better. And yeah, if you like this video, subscribe, all that stuff. And thanks for watching my review.